Yet to know what's going to happen. Let's get your predictions in chat. Who do you think is going to be on the podium? And good evening to you, Hyper. Hope you're well. Here come the lights. And the sprint race may be over, but the Brazilian Grand Prix is only just underway, and it looks like Ross has had a little bit of a poor start there, and Clements has got the lead perhaps into turn one. He's ahead, just as the Williams was in the first race. Oh, and a spinner, that's Chives. Medium tyres are his weapon of choice, and his weapon of choice have let him down there, it seems. Prev attacking Ross now for P2. Clements goes wide. Ross gaining the lead back there. So an unforced error from Chives has sent him to the back of the field. And an unforced error from Clements. A great start there from Clements. A poor start from Ross. Very short run down to turn one. Clements got it spot on. But his turn four wasn't very good. And Ross has maintained the lead at the end of lap one. Appy making his way up the field. Jamin has also gone up from 17th to 14th. We obviously know Chives has dropped a little bit. James White and Appy going side by side now. It looks like everyone is falling into a nice little DRS train, but still only one lap done of this race. Ryan is the closest to the car in front. He is right behind Dr. Edward, who has made his way into the top 8, and Flew is also flying through the field. He's up into 6th place right now. Edward, who is looking to attack Pete for 7th. There's lots of close fighting in the midfield. Out in front, they're kind of 5 to 7 tenths gap on each other, so nothing too close. However, this midfield is proving to be a lot more closer. One mistake can set you back to the field. Can send you back to the back of the field as Tidy Bear pits for the second lap in a row. Chives is on the back of AJ Sam and seems to have caught up. He was 3 seconds down after the first lap when he did make his spin at turn 2. But he seems to be making his way. No problem for Ryan. He's getting past Dr. Edward for P8. And a nice opportunistic move here from Wiggles. He goes side by side with Dr. Edward, and it looks like Dr. Edward has lost 2 places in 2 corners there. And Ryan capitalising on that as Mr. Wiggles pulling out of the slipstream, getting a lot of overspeed, and looking to go around the outside of turn 3. A little bit of contact there. Gap just cut off at the last minute. Wiggles has to be careful he doesn't get overtaken by Edward behind. Pete's gone a bit too deep into 4. Wiggles has passed. He's released up into 8th place. And I have to say, Wiggles was down in the bottom 5 on the start. So he's had an absolute monster of an opening 5 laps with tyre strategies. Clements leads Ross by less than a second. Prev is in DRS range, as is Connor, as is Fairley, as is Flew. And Ryan is now the one at risk of being overtaken. Mr. Wiggles close enough. He's got a good exit out of the first couple of corners, and he definitely will get this move done. DRS is just way too powerful down this straight. Ryan has to settle for P8 right now. Goes a little bit wide at 4, so may get a warning for that. 2 laps left, but we already are at the end of lap 7. We have Dr. Edward very close to the back of Pete, who seems to be dropping away from Ryan, as Ross does take the lead round the outside of Clements. Just about enough space for both cars there. And now Ross is going to be vulnerable on this straight. We've got Connor and Fairley going side by side there through the exit of turn 3, and going side by side towards turn 4. Amos Fairley just ducks in beneath his teammate. Clements retakes the lead with DRS assistance towards turn 4 as well. It's all happening in the top 5 places. And let's not forget about Flew. He's had some great races this season, some good results, and he is certainly not out of the picture of the race win. But Prev, who is very close now to the back of Ross, who seems to have had a poor exit from the last corner. And Prev now moving into prime spot, holder of second place now, and maybe he could be the one to challenge Clements, as this opening stint of the race won't be going on for too much longer for these soft runners. It could be, as we said earlier, who is going to be doing a pit stop first, trying to get an undercut opportunity. His top three super close, only 3/10 separating the top three. Going into turn 6, got to be careful that you don't make an unforced error and get any wing damage at this point, because changing your wing will cost you 5 seconds in the pits and will ruin your chance at a podium. Wonder if Ross goes for the undercut, says Alvarez. Possibly, certainly those two Mercedes doing really well. Bit of a wiggle there from Connor coming out of turn 12, I think it is. As PSRY jamming gets a 3-second time penalty, but does make the move on Dayman, although they're ahead, which I'm sure Ross and Prev will be happy about. Mr. Wiggles has been overtaken by Ryan meanwhile. Ryan's up into 7th place, and they have dropped back from the back of Flew. There's a safety car as AJ Sam has retired from the race, and that is at the exit of turn 4. There you see it, the wheel is off the front left, which means he's probably got some oversteer on the exit of turn 4, and he's crashed into the barrier on the left hand side of the track. So AJ Sam is out, and this brings the safety car out, which I have to say benefits probably everyone with soft tyres on. Flew stays out to inherit the race lead, but everyone around him has pitted, with the exception of Chives, who does stay out to go up to 2nd place. Ross. AMS Fairley, worth saying, and we did say in the formation lap that Fairley and Connor on identical strategies, and as a result Fairley has dropped from 7th place to 11th place, and that's a very late call from the safety car coming in. Race will be getting underway. Flew leaving it to the last minute possible. Chives has gone with him, but he is under pressure from Clements now. Race restarts lap 14 of 36, and Chives is wide at first corner. Maybe cold tyres. Clements and Prev are through, and Ross now looking to capitalise on Chives' mistake. We've got Ryan and SLR on, fighting for 6th. AMS Fairley also has dropped down to 16th, so an issue there for Fairley. Maybe some contact with another driver on that restart, but we were saying he lost out in the pit stops, having to double stack at Mercedes. He lost out 4 places. He's lost out a further 5 places on this restart, so Fairley not having the most fortuitous race for the win of the Brazilian Grand Prix again for the end of the race. And round the outside of Chives now goes Ross. He's up into 4th. Gap between Prev and Flew is still half a second as DRS is now enabled, so maybe those soft tyres from Flew aren't doing that badly, and maybe if another safety car comes out he will actually have some kind of advantage. But Ross now looking to gain 3rd before Prev gets a 1-second gap on the Aston Martin. Very close. That is a big train of 8 cars, the top 8 drivers. Appy is past Pete, and he's up into 9th place, using those soft tyres to his advantage, and now he has a really good opportunity to close the gap to Mr. Wiggles. He's on the soft tyres and Mr. Wiggles is on the hard. There's Chives right here, right now. Flew doesn't have DRS. Ross cutting the corner to get past Flew and gets a 3-second time penalty in the process. He may have just got away with overtaking there because he uses DRS to try and close that gap. Meanwhile, Prev is going for a move on Clements. Round the outside of turn 4. Gets it done. Ferrari now leads. Clement's not the first time we've seen him go wide at turn 4. Ross is still in the hunt. That guy with the new fastest lap of the race. And Prev is in the leads. And I have to say, he's had a really good lap. Clements, Ross and Prev. These three drivers fighting for first place in the sprint race. And picking up where they left off. We're at half race distance and they're still going at it, these three. We have no idea who's going to finish where right now. But we do know that these three drivers have put on an absolute fantastic showing for the stream here this evening. Clements takes the lead but goes a little bit wide at turn 4, not for the first time. Prev covers off a move from Ross down the inside of turn 5. Clements keeps the lead. Ryan and Chives meanwhile side by side through this very tight part of the track. And Ross with the outside line now turns to the inside line. Should get this move pretty much sorted. Chives with old tyres. Can't get the traction out of turn 10. And now defending from Mr. Wiggles. Let's not forget Appy is at the back of this train. And he, I'm sure, is very excited to get through. Back to the leaders now. Ross has the red light on his car, which means he's running a bit low on energy, but maybe he's trying to use it to get past Prev at the end of lap 19. I have to say, these no assist tier drivers always throw up some great racing, and they're not disappointing tonight. It's been great to watch. Appy now moving on Chives down the inside. Chives now has the inside line. Oh, and a bit of contact and he's spun. That's going to hurt Chives. And to be honest, you always run that risk being on old mediums. You always run that risk on old tyres. Lewis pitted meanwhile this lap and he's down to 14th place. But how is Clement still leading this race? No flashing red light on his car, so he's still got enough energy to party here. But Prev going for it, engaging overtake, got DRS round the outside into turn 4. Nice move, pretty routine move now. Ross has to sit and watch Prev go into the leads where desperately he needs to be, because he has a 3-second time penalty that will be added onto his time. And as it stands, that will drop him off the podium, and SL O'Connor, who is lying in wait, will be inheriting 3rd place as it stands. SL O'Connor here could be in a good spot. He doesn't have to use too much overtake here, he can just use DRS, stay within contention, and if one of these top 3 make any kind of mistake, he'll be there to capitalise. Ryan is in 5th and having a really good race, but if he did press A at the start of the race, he will get a 10-second time penalty as Clements now re-overtakes Prev. Oh, and Ross, what a dive bomb! Thought he was going to overtake both of the cars there. Prev gets overtaken by both the top 2, and now Ross has DRS. Clements parking his car in exactly the right place there, although leaves a spot around the outside, and Ross just drives around the outside and retakes the lead. Oh, and Connor's out! Connor side by side with Prev, and Connor is out of this race. Very unfortunate. Still waiting to see if there's going to be a safety car. I'm going to assume there will be a safety car, because and from absolutely nowhere, these Ferrari cars having a fantastic race, but Appy does have a penalty, which means that Ryan is due to take 4th place back. One driver who's gone under the radar but has had an absolutely brilliant race so far is Padge. He's up into 7th place, ahead of the likes of Pete, Dr. Edward and James White. Eamon's Fairley's on the back of Chives. Both of these have soft tyres on their car. He pits. He did know he was going to pit again. Those soft tyres won't last the rest of the race, and I imagine he'll be on a second set of soft tyres on this stop. And Mr. Wiggles heading past the Alfa Romeo on lap 24. Dayman is right behind Appy, but Appy with that new tyres now has a small gap to James White, but has 11 seconds if he wants to get in the top 8. That is Appy's deal, whereas all of these top 9 can go to the end. Ryan on the back of Wiggles. Wiggles has a time penalty, remember. Clements and Prev have DRS on our race leader Ross. Just biding their time, waiting for a better opportunity as Pete pits from 8th place, or 7th place. New leader of the race, Clements, is back past Ross. Interesting, Ross is on the hard tyre, Clements and Prev on the mediums. And good evening to you, Magic. Connor is not happy with Prev. Ryan still can't make a move on Mr. Wiggles. Only 4 seconds is the gap between Wiggles and Prev. Maybe that 4-second gap is just too big to close that. Ross very close to Clements. I have to say, these top 3 drivers have been putting on an absolute clinic, and to decide a driver of the day between any 3 of these is very difficult, so I need your help in chat. In 5 or so laps time, I'll be asking for who you think is driver of the day. Damon and Flew side by side, having a nice little fight there through the exit of turn 5. Flew has got the better of the Haas car there. And Damon is round. He's round at turn 6 and 7. He's lost out to many cars. He's not out of the race yet. As side by side go Ross and Clements. Clements staying ahead. Prev is now right on the engine of Ross. Clements running low. Clements wide. Wide at the exit of 5. Ross takes the lead. But we've seen so many changes for the lead here that we just don't know what's going to happen. We're expecting another handful of overtakes for the lead here. Flew boxes and retires from the race. Maybe that decision to stay out under the safety car and not pit for new tyres, maybe that just cost him on this occasion. But we all live and we learn. Mr. Wiggles now is closing that gap to the top 3. The more these top 3 fight, the more that Mr. Wiggles is just driving towards them. It was 4 seconds, it's now down to 3 seconds as Padge gets his first time penalty. And now Padge needs to be careful that he doesn't finish the race dropping behind Dr. Edward, who is currently in 7th place. Appy, meanwhile, is charging up the field after Ross is keeping the lead on this occasion, but here comes Chives now. Can he use DRS to get past James White into turn 1? Side by side with the Alpine. Squeezing James White for some space there, but seems all clean. Chives is up into 9th and having a nice little final stint to this race here. Cummins has had a really good turn 1. And I think Cummins has just got DRS. I think what's happening in the final few laps of this race is those hard tyres are in much better condition than those medium tyres. And I think Ross is using those hard tyres, the rubber that's left on them He's really pushing now to try and get that gap on Kemments and Prev. And there you see, it's now 1.3 seconds. Ross's opportunity to win this race is right now. Ross needs to push and get a 3-second gap on Kemments, who seems to be struggling. Prev is still within striking distance here, and Kemments will not get the DRS advantage for the first time in what we can only describe as 28 laps. Prev has a great opportunity to get past the Williams here. Will he make a move? I think he'll just bide his time for turn 4, but that gap out front is 1.5 seconds. Ross is halfway there if he wants to keep the race win, but he only has 4 laps left to do it. That is the challenge of Dr. Edward for 7th place. Again, Padge, we've said before, having a good race, but needs to stay out of that 3-second window from Dr. Edward. He's currently doing it, and with a handful of laps left, looking good for 6th place. Ryan, again, his job is to try and stay within 3 seconds of Mr. Wiggles, as Prev still can't find a way past Kemments. It looks like Kemments has some really good straight line speed on his setup, and maybe those medium tyres just dropping off, but the gap still isn't rising out front. It's still 1.3 seconds. Ross cannot force that gap any bigger. Alfa Romeo driver to win this race. I have to say, it's been an absolute classic. Happy meanwhile has passed Dr. Edward, and Pete and Chives are going side by side into turn 1. Chives will have DRS, I think. Yep, that Red Bull wing is open, and a straightforward move. Although they are going side by side. Chives squeezing Pete, says that's my corner, pal, I'm going up into 9th, and he does. Closing in. And if those hard tyres are in better nick than the mediums right now, then Mr. Wiggles may have a chance of getting on the podium here. This is still not done. 3 laps left. That goes past James White for 11th place, but he does have a time penalty, so he may not keep that 11th place at the end of the race. Dr. Edward in a good spot to jump ahead of Appy at the moment. And Pete is still on the back of Chives after that recent overtake from the Red Bull. Still plenty of battles up and down the fields. The gap is now 2.8 seconds. 2 laps left of this race. Ross crosses the line to start lap 35 of 36, and the gap is 3.2 seconds. Let's have a look at the penalties. Here comes Kemments now, forcing his way down the inside. Chives meanwhile has 9 seconds of time penalties, so he is definitely going to lose that to Pete. As it stands, gap is 3.1 out front. The more that Prev and Kemments fight, the more that Ross is going to gain an advantage, and there goes Prev down the inside of Kemments into second, retaking second, and Prev has... Oh, and Pete has retired there. We know he was close to Chives, maybe there was contact. No safety car in the last 2 laps. So Pete has lost out on some points there. And now Wiggles is right behind Kemments. The gap out front is 4.1 seconds. It looks like if Ross can avoid a penalty on this last lap, it looks like he's going to win the race. But who's going to be on the podium with him? Prev and Kemments side by side. Kemments can't get past. Was that his opportunity? Mr. Wiggles is still lying in wait, but he has a time penalty, so he may just have to sit back and wait for a crash or a spin from someone. Ross leads by 4.3 seconds now, so Ross is definitely going to win this race if he can keep the final few corners free from any penalty. Nice battle between that guy James White and AMS Fairley, who is now up into 11th. Ross coming out of turn 13 and 14 now. He's going to win the race. I have to say, it's been a great drive, and maybe that strategy call to go onto the hard tyre has just separated him from Prev and Kemments. Wiggles takes P3 on track by less than a tenth. but you will lose out to Kemments on the line. Have to say, Wiggles raced really well there at the end, but that 3-second time penalty did just shoot him in the foot. Still, P4, very good for the Haas driver who started in the bottom 5 cars. Ryan finishes in P5, Appy with a great recovery drive up to 6th. Dr. Edward and Padge just losing out to Dr. Edward on the line there, and Amos Fairley out of nowhere in the last few laps. He has forced his way into 9th place, which I have to say is damage limitation. Got unfortunate, did Fairley, on the safety car pit stops. Wow. Just wow. Mr. Wiggles gets in-game driver of the day. He did drive absolutely brilliantly, but we all know it was going to go to one of those top 3. And I think Ross deserves it just because he got the tyre situation absolutely spot on. You can see how close it was between those top 3. Just 1 millisecond between the fastest lap from Ross and Prev. And still, Kemments only just less than a tenth ahead of them in terms of fastest lap.